Good afternoon, fellow Plexers. Today's video is going to show how to regress a Plex server container install on a Synology NAS that was installed with Portainer. And you'll see that I have two different containers that I can spin up on my older DS1019 Plus, which is running DSM 7.2 point something. Well, with a container, it doesn't matter the version of DSM the Synology NAS is running. So this is my default test Plex server on this older NAS that I use for different tutorial videos. And this is a second one I've spun up. And if I go to DSM, all you have to have for this type of install, which I've done a video on before by following the Marius hosting guide for a Plex server container with hardware acceleration. You just need to install Container Manager on the NAS, create a shared folder named Docker lowercase, and prep the eventual install by creating a subfolder that has the container name you're going to use. So the container we're working with is named Plex124, and my default container that's not running is just named Plex. And then on this NAS, I also have a package install of Plex to test with. That's in this shared media folder that's created by the package install. So you can have multiple installs of Plex on a Synology NAS, but only run one at a time. So I could shut this container down, spin up the package. I could shut this container down and spin up the other Docker of Plex. So what I've learned in the last few days trying to figure this out is that I cannot regress my current version, which is, let's bring the web app in, 1.4.4.8679. I can't regress that past a certain point because 2, 3, 4 months ago, Plex had a major database upgrade that had to migrate information from the old database to the new one. So what I'm going to attempt to show is that I can hopefully easily regress a couple months to this version, but I won't be able to regress almost 3 years to this version or 4 years to that version. But I can wipe the container and install this version and then go back another year. So that's what I hope to demonstrate today. And I don't see any reason to have dead air trying to go from here to here, but maybe I'll show that just to show how it fails, and then I'll wipe the container and install this version fresh. But that may or may not mean having to claim the server again, which is a little bit extra. So let's stop this container. Well, that's the HTPC client app that I didn't realize was open. And if I refresh this, you'll see that that server is no longer available. So let's go into the stacks. This is the stack I use to create the default test container, and this will be identical to the other stack I'm using, besides the container name is different and it's pointing to the different subfolder in the Docker shared folder. Everything else is the same except for the image line and the version line. So to use an older version of Plex, we change the image line and we change the version line. And you can find those old packages for Linux server at this GitHub address that I will list in the description. And to give you an example, it's off screen. For my Synology NAS, I want the plainly named ones, not the ones that start with AMD. So if I went back a number of years and I wanted to try this one, I would click into it and I would just copy this information to add to what I'll post in the description. Because all that bit that I copied is just this right here. This part is always the same. So once you have that, it's just followed by what's highlighted here. All right, so we're going to change those two lines to go back a few months to this version. And we'll see if we're successful. And because I can't talk and think about the video and what I'm doing with Plex server at the same time, I have to check things over. That looks good. That looks good. Let's make this full screen. And let's drop down, click Update the Stack, Repoll Image and Redeploy and Update. Pretty quickly, I should get a notification that the container started successfully. And if you don't, usually the error message will help you figure out why. I can't leave the editor until it starts, otherwise I'll lose my changes. So down here it says deployment in progress. So we're watching here and up here. Okay, it's successfully deployed. So now I can change to the container view and it's starting. So what I'm going to do is just pause this and you can watch the time to see when I come back, now that I've reminded you just now, to see how long it takes for this to start. I definitely know I can't go back to a version 3 years old, but let's see if this version is able to go back to. If not, I'll try a slightly newer version. All right, pausing now. As soon as I paused, it changed to the healthy status. So now if I pull my Plex server back up, the web app is already aware that the server is back online. You see the version changed to 8.3.95 and an update is available. And all it says is please install manually. And in another browser, this deb file opens up because Plex just thinks it's a Linux version. So we were able to go back. And let's just check to see if an episode plays. And it does. So now we can stop this container again. Server's gone. And I think I will try to go back to this just to show you that we can't cross that line where the database was updated. So bring this into focus. What I need to do is copy that. Let's go back into the stack, pick the right one, editor, change that. Oh, I didn't change it. Now I changed it. And I need this version also. Oh, and if I didn't mention, you just have version colon space and you paste this part into the rest of it. Okay, so now we'll make this full screen. We'll update the stack, redeploy the image. And now start watching the clock. I will come back in 5 minutes and we'll see what happens. Okay, so the container did start, but it's marked starting. It should not start, and if it does, it'll be unhealthy. All right, so 1:55. I will be back in 5 minutes. And I'm back, and it's been 5 minutes. And let's refresh this. And it's now unhealthy. So if we bring Plex server back in, an unhealthy container is not a running container. So my intuition tells me that once the database was upgraded and all the information migrated from the old form to the new form, that you can't roll Plex back past a migration like that. Which means when you read in the release notes for a new server that there's a database upgrade, that means you'll want to back your container up in case you have to roll back. So we'll stop this in Portainer. I've got Synology NAS already opened up. All I can do now is delete this to then install an older version. And I'm seeing these two folders get created with a failed rollback. So now, say this was my original container. I could have just right-clicked it and copied it to back it up someplace else. And then that could have been reset up to run just as it was once the original folder had the database migration. So this is empty now. So let's go back to Portainer, into the stack, into the editor, and we're still set up for version 1.24. So we'll update the stack now, repoll and redeploy, update. Okay, success. While I'm here, let me clear these old notices. Go to container, this is starting. And hopefully it won't take 5 minutes to find out whether it's going to start and run properly. But we're at 2:03, and I'll come back once it's properly started and running. It wasn't even 30 seconds. So now we have the Plex server running. But we're not going to be able to find it. So let me just copy that so I can rename it the same thing. So now what I have to do is claim the server. So we'll use this page. And because I know the local IP address of this server by heart, I can type
You have a text message.
Okay, so it's always this format. Well, let me fix that typo. It's always this format. You can't claim this server without a direct IP address login, and it has to say web. So then you should get to this page. And this is where it might get wonky if you're claiming a server again under Windows that had already been claimed once. I'd have to look up the Plex support article, but you'd be using the local host at the web instead of the direct IP address under Windows. But I don't use Windows hardly ever, just for certain test videos. Please graduate to Linux to make everything easier. So I will give it the same old server name. Now, if this page ever hangs, just refresh, but we'll give it a little bit more time. Okay, gave it enough time. So I'll quickly set up those two same test libraries. So my alias for the real path is myplexmedia. I have this media sorted into library sort folders, so I want my movie library sort folder. And you'll notice that I'm not using any uppercases or spaces at this level. So I have all these different named movie folders that I was testing. They're out of any Plex library, so I'm just going to point to the library I want. And then, just because I always show it, my minimum collection size for automatic collections is always set to 2. So let's add that same series library. Again, my alias, now my TV library sort folder. And I had this same test running for a previous version. All these different named series folders are outside of any library. And then because all my naming comes from the TV database entry for aired ordering, I change episode ordering to the TVDB. Next, done. And now I can get rid of this and go back to my regular web app and refresh it. And let's go to settings. All right, so I have 2 servers now with the same name. It didn't quite do what I wanted. So I should go to authorized devices, all change to server. And you can tell this one was spun up 2 minutes ago and this one was spun up 15 hours ago. So I'll nuke that one. So that means none of the server settings survived on this one. So because it's on a Synology NAS, I can have it scan my library automatically when partial changes are detected. I can include music because it's a small test server. And I can empty the trash automatically after every scan. And I always allow media deletion. And I don't want to set up what don't I want to set up? I don't want to set up remote access because I'll give away my public IP address if I do it on screen. So let's go to the languages, automatically select the foreign audio subtitle. Let's see, I want to go to general, not general, where do I want to go? Oh, I want to go to transcoder. And I want to use hardware transcoding when available. And this older version does not let me pick a transcoder. On the newer versions, you have an auto section, and then you can hit the drop down and pick your actual transcoder or another one if you have multiple ones. And there's some place I want to be to sign in automatically. Oh, I want to scan my library automatically and run a partial scan when changes are detected. Oh, I did this already, but I didn't drop down and save the changes. I'm still looking for the section where I sign in. Oh, it's sign in automatically. Okay, so now that we've got that going, we can go to a library and make sure a show plays. Okay, so now we're going to regress this because we're past that updated database point in history where we'll be before it. So now we're going to regress another year. So let's stop the container. And we'll lose that Plex server. And then this time, we need this for version 1.2 1.20. Let's go into the right stack. And I have to hit editor. We'll change this line. And I don't really need to copy the other one because at this point, this is all I really need. I can copy just that section and go down and add that to the version. And then we can update the stack, redeploy. Now, if you caught it, with the last version, I never updated the version line, and it still seemed to work with a container. I'll have to rewatch the video myself before I post it to see if the version was 1.24. But I did not have the line for the transcoder where I could choose between auto and my transcoder. So I'm assuming it was, but it'll be interesting to see if that was correct while I rewatch it. This version may not be necessary, but I'm doing it anyway. Alright, so the container is already running. Let's refresh this. And it shows a server update. And it does show that I'm running 1.20.4 gobbledygook. So that was fairly easy to regress from 3 years ago to 4 years ago, but we couldn't go to 3 years ago because of the server database update a few months ago. So I just learned all this a few days ago, and if I learn more in the future, you know I'll do another video. But at least that's how to do it under a Synology NAS running Portainer. Before I close out, I was just doing a little bit of reading. So let me go into my Plex server container. Let's see, there's edit. And let's turn on advanced view and let's see if I can remember what I read last night. Let me just look through the settings. I think with an unraid container you can roll back by this version line. And I don't know exactly what has to be changed, but I think it might be easier to roll back under unraid than even through Portainer. But again, the issue is you're not going to be able to roll back through that database update because those are totally different files inside the folder structure of the container. And I don't know why rolling back creates these two files. I just don't know why. But creating a container fresh does not. Updating to a newer version through Portainer does not. And lastly, let's show that. That'll be a good way to end the video. So, if you haven't used Portainer to create your Plex container, you can update very easily. So now that we're on the 1.20 point whatever version, let's stop that. And let's go forward. So we know we need to return to this information. And editor. Paste that in. Oh, I lost my I. And I already know that this version just needs to be latest, and I believe it's lowercase. Oh, it's public. Alright, so now let's update the stack, click the repull image and redeploy. Okay, I don't know why that error hit. Alright, I'll lose those changes. Let me go into this container. Oh, sorry, wrong stack. Go into this stack. Oh, I think it's the capital I. Alright, so let's try this again. Folks, it's not that hard to figure out where you've made an issue sometimes. So because I didn't save changes, that capital I disappeared. And this was not latest, this was public. And that's lowercase. All right, let's try this again. What will we see? Success, just what we wanted. And when it successfully deploys, the editor is saved. Okay, now I'm going to pause the video because this includes a database update that will take a little bit to process the migration. So I'll give it 5 minutes and I'll be back again. Alright, it didn't start long, or it didn't take long. Only a couple minutes. So let's go to our Plex server. Alright, so that's the web app. I no longer see the update part, and you'll see we're back on the new server. And let's make sure an episode plays. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm in the wrong server. Alright, you'll see the correct server were updated to the latest version. There is no more updated version. And now let's make sure an episode plays again. So that's it. That's what I know so far. And now I know how to roll back to the previous version or a few versions easily in case a Plex update isn't working well for me. Now with a Synology package install, I guess I just can't stop. If you save your old package installs that you download, you can roll back to any of them. And all you have to do is stop the Plex server like it's stopped now and do a manual install and point to those saved older install files that you've used to update. So that covers regressing on a Synology package install too, but again, you're not going to be able to get past that database migration point that took place a short time ago. Okay, thanks for watching and happy Plexing.